people often wonder whether America has any part to play in end-time Bible prophecies, and I don't think we can fully be for sure until things unfold, until that actually happens, but I do think Scripture gives us some clues and some hints about certain things, and so we could make our best speculations and try to figure out what it could possibly mean. But I think some of the book of Revelations is very cryptic. First off, let's just start by saying, when John saw this revelation, he was confined to the island of Patmos after they had made an assassin. They had tried to kill him. The Roman government had tried to kill him, but he survived, and then he gets this wonderful revelation from the Lord that shows him what's going to take place in the end times. And understanding the book of Revelations, you got to think from the first century mindset. John was seeing things that were happening in the very distant future that he did not have words to describe. And so when he's talking about things that are taking place, he's going to use basically first century language that existed at the time. He's not going to have words for things like, that have not been invented yet, but he's seeing these future events unfold. And some have suggested that Babylon the Great in Revelation 17 could be speaking about the United States of America. That is a very possible theory, and I won't assume one way or another, but we do for certain know there is a few interesting key details that kind of maybe lead to that hypothesis. And one of the things that will happen before the Antichrist can seemingly claim power and rule over the world is the mysterious Babylon the Great must first fall and be destroyed. Then the angel said to me, "The waters you saw where the prostitute sits are the people, multitudes, nations, and language. The beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God has put it in their hearts to accomplish his purpose by agreeing to hand over to the beast their royal authority until God's words are fulfilled. The woman you saw is a great city that rules over the kings of the earth." That's Revelations 17:15 through 18. And so when it says the 10 horns, it's probably referring to 10 nations that collaboratively turn against this mysterious Babylon the Great to destroy her. And by getting her out of the way, this enables the rise of the Antichrist. And it says, quote, put this in quotations, "For God has put it into their hearts to accomplish his purpose by agreeing to hand over to the beast their royal authority until God's words are fulfilled." Interesting thing, though, is Babylon the Great is depicted metaphorically as a woman, as nations are oftentimes referred to throughout scriptural literature, and she sits on a scarlet beast. She has the influence of many nations and people. She has influence over many nations and people. American culture, for example, is comprised of a very diverse group of people. We have people from all different countries that make up American society and citizenship here. And so America has oftentimes been referred to as the great melting pot, meaning many ethnicities and races make up American culture. America has several subcultures too, that speak various languages. We have people here that speak Spanish, and other languages, although the predominant language most people speak is English. Secondly, America has international influence. It's referred to as a world superpower. And so, when it says this Babylon the Great rules over people, multitudes, and nations and languages, obviously she is depicted as someone who has a vast influence internationally speaking. America, in the state of New York, it has a statue well known that we call the Statue of Liberty. And it's interesting because she is nicknamed Lady Liberty, and she stands high and her base is surrounded by a body of water. She has a torch in her hand and a crown on her head. In the sense of the crown on the head, that represents authority. And, if a king wore a crown, it represented his authority over subjects. And so, Babylon the Great seems to rule over the nations until her end comes. And so, ancient Babylon was an actual place in ancient times, and It was a very powerful empire when it existed, and in the Old Testament, God predicted the fall of Babylon. He said, "Go down, sit in the dust, virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground without a throne, queen city of the Babylonians. No more will you be called tender and delicate. Take a millstone and grind flour, take off your veil, lift up your skirts, bare your legs, and wade through the streams. Your nakedness will be exposed, and your shame will be uncovered. I will take vengeance, and I will spare no one. Our Redeemer, the Lord Almighty is his name, the Holy One of Israel. Sit in silence, go into darkness, queen city of Babylonians. No more will you be called queen of kingdoms. I was angry with my people and desecrated my inheritance. I gave them into your hands and showed them no mercy. Even the age you laid a very heavy yoke. You said, I am forever eternal queen. But you did not consider the things or reflect on what might happen. Now then, listen, you lover of pleasure, lounging in security, and saying to yourself, I am, and there is none besides me. I will never be widow or suffer loss of children. Both these will overtake you in a moment. On a single day, loss of children and widowhood. They will come upon you in full measure. In spite of your many sorceries and all your potent spells, you have trusted your wickedness and said, no one sees me. Your wisdom and knowledge mislead you to when you say to yourself, I am, then there is none besides me. Disaster will come upon you, and you will not know how to conjure it away. Calamity will fall upon you, and you cannot ward it off with a ransom. A catastrophe you cannot foresee will suddenly come upon you. That is Isaiah 47, 1 through 11. And so, here we see Babylon in this ancient passage was considered a queen of kingdoms, and the king of Babylon subjugated and subjugated many nations under his control. And Babylon here in this passage is depicted as a self-indulgent, decadent woman lounging in security, thinking no harm can possibly befall her. So later on in Revelations 18, the mystery nation known as Babylon the Great will also seem to collapse and fall suddenly, and all the nations of the earth will watch in shock and horror. And it says, starting with Revelations 18, 9 through 20, when the kings of the earth who committed adultery with her and shared her luxuries see the smoke of her burning, they will weep and mourn over her, terrified at her torment. They will stand far off and cry, woe, woe to you, great city, you mighty city of Babylon. In 1 hour your doom has come. The merchants of the earth weep and mourn over her because no one buys their cargo anymore. Cargoes of gold, silver, precious stones, pearl, fine linen, purple, silk, scarlet cloth, and every sort of citron wood. The articles of every kind made of ivory, costly stones, bronze, iron, marble, cargo of cinnamon and spice, of incense, myrrh, and frankincense, of wine and olive oil, of fine flour, wheat, cattle, sheep, horses, carriages, and human beings sold as slaves. They will say, the fruit you longed for is gone from you, and the luxury and splendor have vanished, never to be recovered. The merchants who sold these things and gained their wealth from her will stand far off, terrified at her torment. They will weep and mourn and cry aloud, woe, woe to you, great city, dressed in fine linen, purple, scarlet, glittering gold, precious stones, and pearls. In 1 hour such great wealth has been brought to ruin. Every sea captain who travels by sea, and sailors, and all who earn their living by the seas will stand far off when they see the smoke of her burning. They will exclaim, was there ever a great city like this great city? They will throw dust on their heads and with weeping and mourning cry out, woe, woe to you, great city, where all who had ships on sea became rich through her wealth. In 1 hour she has been brought to ruin. Rejoice over her, you heavens. Rejoice, you people of God. Rejoice, apostles and prophets, for God has judged her, and the judgment she has imposed on you. So we see the people of the earth seem to be sad to some degree that she is gone, because they can no longer have a buyer for their international goods and imports. Strangely enough, America buys most in imports, and exporting goods is not one of our strong suits. Yet in the case of this mystery nation, the other nations mourn that she is no more, and the merchants of the earth weep and mourn over her because no one buys their cargoes anymore. Cargoes of gold, silver, precious stones, pearls, fine linen, purple silk, and scarlet cloth, every sort of citron wood, an article of every kind made of ivory, costly wood, bronze, iron, marbles, cargoes, cinnamon, spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, of wine and olive oil, and fine flour, wheat, cattle and sheep, horses and carriages, and human beings sold as slaves. If we look back to early American history, pre-Civil War era, our country did bring many, many slaves here. And so we can't say that, this is currently happening in our nation, but it has in the past. And we see that was a fairly ugly portion of American history. Undoubtedly, one of the pieces of history that really tarnished the history books for sure. And so it says about this mysterious Babylon the Great, the whore of Babylon, in 1 hour the great Babylon is obliterated and goes up in smoke. The scarlet beast Babylon rode on was mentioned as being a nation. It was and is no more, but will come back again and then eventually go down to the abyss in its destruction. Yet many think Rome fits the description of the scarlet beast she was on. Yet we may ask, what does our country have to do with Rome? Well, interestingly enough, not much else aside from the fact ancient Rome was where the USA got many of its ideas about democracy. Rome in the early years, there was two periods of Roman history. One was imperial Rome, but before that there was Rome the Republic, where Rome was more of a democracy and a republic before it became a total empire. Rome in the early years was known as the Republic and actually had governing bodies, and one was referred to as an actual Senate. Later Rome became a dictatorship and was ruled by emperors. Yet many American concepts are not new to just us. Our system of American government is kind of not as new as we think it was, because the ancient Romans, we got some of our ideas from how they did things. Yet many American concepts are not new, but actually some were incorporated from the Rome Republic. And, interestingly enough, the Statue of Liberty's tunic that she wears, or the robe she wears, actually represented about a Roman goddess who was a goddess of freedom or something like that, from the research I've done. And the actual 7 points on her crown actually represent the 7 seas and the 7 continents. And so it's that kind of very interesting symbolism. So, and she sits on this Babylon the Great, who we're not fully certain who it is, sits on the scarlet beast, and if the beast did indeed represent Rome of the old world, we could maybe conclude that if Babylon the Great was truly America, America had many ideas that early Republic of Rome first came up with. Many of our methods of democracy sit on certain principles Rome had already had before us. Rome at one time could elect their governing body members, and most of the time, most Roman officials had one term of 1 year. That was their term limit. But the governing body members before Caesar came to be the decisive power. Now, this is just a theory, I suppose. Yet, like the passage says, the mystery of Babylon the Great. So we're not really fully certain who this mysterious character depicted in Revelation 17 is. But in order for the Antichrist to actually rise to power, the great whore of Babylon falls first and is out of the way. So somehow, maybe if she is represented as ruling over the nations of the world, if she is out of the way, then the Antichrist steps into that position and rules over the nations of the world and enforces, his rule. And that is just a part part of what I maybe hypothesized, but I could be wrong. It's just speculation, but I wanted to create this video. God bless.